Hello, guys. I'm here with another interview, and I actually have the pleasure to talk to this beautiful man here right next to me, Deficio. And starting off, you have not been playing for like a while, for like 2 years right now, and transitioned to the caster role. Can you say like you like casting more than playing right now?
Oh, 100%, 100%. I think casting, everything involved in casting, the preparation, being on camera, analyst desk, whatever it is what fits me better than being a caster. Oh, sorry, being a player. Honestly, when I became a pro player, it was with the goal that I hopefully could move on to something else fairly quickly. So when I had the chance, I just kind of said, you know what, I'm done playing, let's move on. And it's been working out.
Yeah. Okay. So of course you are the European expert here. What's your general take on the level of Europe right now in terms of strength in comparison to other regions?
Oh, as always, when we have the discussion among other regions, it becomes super, super difficult. I actually don't think there's any region that can say they're super strong at the moment, like the entire region. But I do think we can look at like Korea and say there's at least 4 to 5 teams we would consider being closer to top teams in the world compared to like Europe, where if you said 4 or 5 teams, you would be lying. And NA, we see Immortals as the only one, Energy kind of stepping up, getting close. So I think instead of looking at just like the entire region, I'm just going to look at purely the top teams. And I think Korea definitely has the better top teams. Obviously, I think the ROX Tigers are the best team in the world. I really enjoy watching all the games. And I think for anyone who wants to really learn the meta, you look at those games and see what they're doing. I think the same can honestly be said for G2 and H2K. I think a lot of what they're doing is what you have to do in this current meta here. 2 different styles. One is a little bit more passive, but focus on pushing towers and minions. And G2 is just extremely aggressive. They understand how to push their advantage. So I think those are very interesting. Immortals can join the G2 group. Aggressive players, coming in. LPL, I mean, I still love LPL. I really think it's super interesting. But I have such a hard time judging the LPL level. Also after what happened last year, where we expected a lot from LGD and so on coming into Worlds, and they're disappointed. So I'm not going to rank any of the regions specifically, but Korea is still the strongest, sure. ROX Tigers is the best team in the world, and SKT can get a close second.
So talking about the meta, I mean, I would consider myself an expert. Would you agree on the statement that the meta is kind of like in every region, everyone is playing the same stuff now, as in comparison to last seasons where LPL had a different meta and Korea played like a very slow meta, still playing a very slow meta, whereas Europe is a bit faster. But in terms of champion picks, it's still, we see like this all the time, like all champions are being played pretty much the same role, right?
Yeah, I think we see very few changes. Very specific champions like LPL plays Nautilus top lane, which we haven't seen in Europe or in North America. NA started playing a lot of Janna, going back just a few weeks. Obviously now more and more regions are doing the same. So it is somewhat interesting that almost every region is playing the same. We haven't seen that before. But then there's small changes on where do they prefer to send certain champions. LPL was the first one to really do Poppy top lane, where if you talk to a lot of the European players back in week 1, they're like, no, Poppy support is like super OP and like it's bad top lane, just Poppy support only. Now we never see Poppy support anymore. Now it's only almost being played top and sometimes jungle. So I think it is because, first of all, the more international tournaments we have where regions who may be expected to be a lot better than they were, so like China as an example from last year where they didn't end up losing, I think it gives more attention to all the teams around the world, and they will, like a team like LGD, and I don't know it is 100%, but I could assume, will then start paying more attention to what happens in Europe, what happens in NA, what are teams playing. Everyone always looks to Korea and say, what is Korea playing? Okay, we're going to try and copy and play the same. I feel like now it's more broad, where everyone is looking at each other, all the teams are doing it, and it does mean that when you see one specific champion being picked over and over and over in one region, you will start trying to pick it up and see if it's good for yourself. But I also think, honestly, when it comes to champ selects, I've seen some people complain and say we have just the same 20 champions. I think that's untrue. I think actually we have a lot of different picks in every role that can be used. There's different ways people are playing them. Some people play Bard. Some people don't even touch him or don't even want to touch him, as an example. So I think we have a lot of viable champions at the moment. And it's just about teams figuring out how to use them in team comps.
All right. So talking about specific champions, I know that you have been a big fan of Quinn top lane from especially ROX Tigers, right? Fairly underused in the Western world, I would say. Do you think it's just something that the West has to catch up onto that pick, or is it just just like one pick that is really, really like high risk, high reward style, and it fits the ROX Tigers?
I think Quinn is one of the picks where it is strong, but not every team is able to execute a Quinn composition because she's 100% focused on just being a split pusher all game long. And if you are a team without the greatest macro strategy, the greatest shot calling, it's often easier having like a team fight composition and just kind of try and pile 5 men towards a dragon or a baron or a mid tower and get a big team fight compared to always play split push, which you have to do with Quinn. So I can easily see how a lot of teams will try it, fail with the Quinn, maybe on stage or in scrims, and then kind of drop it. But I think really the main reason it became such a good pick now, because it kind of disappeared a little bit, is that Fiora is obviously still being played so much, and she does really well into Fiora in the early game, something that ROX Tigers and Korea showed. And now more and more teams are picking it up. And I think actually this week in the LCS, at least in Europe, we have seen a lot more Quinn bans and then Fiora picks coming in. So it is definitely something in scrims that's been used, and clearly people have figured out it is strong enough. But I do want to say, I feel like you need to be a very good team communication-wise and understanding how to split push properly in order to use Quinn. Otherwise, just don't pick it because it will not do anything for you.
All right, fair enough. So last question. What do you think about the European exodus that everyone talks about? Some people going over. I mean, Reignover and Huni especially are doing fairly well for themselves. Not so sure about the Yellowstar right now. In TSM, they still have to find a way. What's your current take on that one? I mean, do we have like the talent right now in the LCS already that can just fill that role, or what's your general take on that?
I think if you look at all the players that left, when it comes to replacing the talent, like if you look at a mechanical standpoint, it's Huni and Reignover that obviously is hurting Europe as a region, because we have seen with Fnatic, Spirit, and Gamsu, he's not able to just plug in and fill that role yet. So there's definitely a difference for Fnatic. But we have to remember back in spring, Fnatic last year, it was messy. Like there were so many games where it was Clown Fiesta and like we didn't really know what was happening. So we can't really expect that much from Fnatic now. And I think Gamsu and Spirit, if they get more time, I don't think Gamsu will have the same highs as Huni, but I think he could be a more consistent player if he does up his level and becomes more adjusted to, Fnatic and Europe. The other players, I mean, if we look at a lot of the players who left, like Froggen as an example, yes, he was still a very good mid laner, but he was by no means the guy like leading the charge of mid laners in Europe. I mean, Febiven has already kind of stepped in and taken that role. So losing him sucks for Europe as a region, but we've already got like Perkz, who honestly almost just stepped in straight from where Froggen left and said, now we have a new EU mid laner we can look at. So I don't think that one hurt the overall level. Freeze, I think, was a good AD carry, definitely. And I think he is missed in that sense. But again, we have other good AD carries filling in. I keep looking at these teams who has to now make some of these replacements. Unicorns of Love used 3 different junglers. Rudy comes in now. And if we look at the games he played this week, actually mechanically, he's doing extremely well. And as long as he can follow the calls the Unicorns are making, he's fitting in nicely. So it always makes me happy when we see these solo queue players get into the LCS and instantly actually have an impact and do well, which is something I think Europe has always done well and will keep doing. But obviously losing the big brands like Yellowstar, it is always really annoying because he's such a legacy player. But I also understand why he wanted to try something new. You never know when it's his last year he's playing. So him going to NA, nobody can blame him. It definitely hurts Fnatic as a team. And replacing a shot caller is a lot harder than replacing a just mechanically gifted player, which is what Europe can do. We just got to improve in the communication part, and that's where Yellowstar is really missed.
You hear him, the European expert. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And of course, we have more coverage at thescoreesports.com if you want to check out any other interviews. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.